following announcement has been paid for by the WZWA network.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Insider's Edge podcast here on the WZWA network. I'm your host with the most on the West Coast, Karlifornia and Curie. What a joy, what a pleasure, what an honor to be here with all of you today, because I get the opportunity to talk to a guy that I started watching him on television in the year 2000. This is going back a little while now, but this was just a couple of years after I became a fan of professional wrestling. And I got to see him all through the years, through his time in some of the biggest companies that has ever been in professional wrestling. And it's just such an honor for me today to talk to the one and the only incomparable Shannon Moore. How are you, my friend?
Hey, dude, what's going on? Man, life's good. It's good for me. I'm healthy. And I'm in good shape. I'm still wrestling, and I can't complain. There's no complaints over here, man.
Yeah, bro, that's great to hear. It was only kind of recently that after I'd reached out to you, I was seeing what you have been up to the last few years, and I'd seen that you've been on a few cards lately, and you're back in the ring, which is it's great to hear. I know toward the I guess what year was it? 2012-ish, around then, you did leave wrestling for a few years there, and then you've started to get back into it since then. But what was it that led to that? And, how does it feel to be able to get back out there?
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you what, man, I'm going to shoot straight with you, like, because I don't, it's nothing that I hide. It wasn't 2012, like I was still doing some, I was doing independence and stuff, but I've got my own businesses that I've set up over the last years. Like I've had several tattoo shops that I've owned over the years, and just a lot of little projects. There's been times where I've got burnout on wrestling, but probably about 2016, 2015, 2016, I actually had a bout with addiction, and that was something that I had to go take care of. Because I'd taken 2 years off from everything. And while I was at home, I had some pains and some neck issues at the time. And opiates got out of control. And before you know it, I was shooting heroin. And, I'd become addicted to heroin for, a year. And, I had to end up going to treatment for a couple months. And I put myself through treatment. Well, I went through treatment. WWE, they actually, their wellness policy, they supported me so much. They, I would say they saved my life. Their wellness policy did, because they put me through treatment. And then while I was in treatment, I was able to obviously get sober myself. But while I was in treatment, I started helping other people in treatment. And after treatment, I started working with other athletes. Whether it's football players or just as, a type of service work. And I just, it become a passion of mine. So, once I was able to, work through my own stuff, the opportunity was there for me to work with other, wrestlers or other football players or baseball, anybody, any professional that was struggling with addiction or alcoholism. And man, it's just a passion of mine that, now going forward. So, that's something that I balance with wrestling right now is I actually work in a treatment facility now in Tampa whenever I'm not on the road wrestling, helping, other athletes, other professionals, and just, your everyday, just workers, blue collar workers, not only identify that they be addicted to something, but so come out on the other side and just show them as hope, man. There's hope on the other side. And this is a real disease that we battle in 2021. I don't know about, where you guys are, but I know in America, addiction's a major issue. We talk about COVID and we talk about all this other stuff, but you don't hear much about people dying from an active addiction, and drug overdose right now. And, like our doctors and the pharmacies and the, big pharma, you hear all the conspiracy stuff, but the reality of it is like this a pandemic here. And I think it's important that any kind of, anybody with a voice now that has a platform should really like emphasize like how big this pandemic is with addiction and, with drug overdoses and just overall deaths that come from, addiction. So, I was grateful to be able to be supported by WWE and, like taking care of my issues, but I'm even more grateful now to understand the process, understand what addiction is, and be able to back to other athletes now.
Wow, bro, I didn't mean to start things off on a heavy note like that. I wasn't aware that you'd been through that, but I'm so happy to hear that you've got through that, and with the help of the WWE, and now you're able to use that experience to help other people. So that's really awesome to hear, bro. Thank you so much for sharing that with me. I guess I wanted to start kind of here at this point where you're at now, and then we go all the way back to the beginning. I'm sure you've had this question many times, but when you were a young man, how did you become a wrestling fan?
It was just, I'll never forget it. Like, whenever I was a kid, I had these two, like, I guess we call them mugs, but you drink your beverages out of them. Like, they're like beer mugs. Like mostly people drink beer because they're huge. But I remember I ended up with two of those. I don't know how. Whenever I was like 4 or 5 years old, and I had a Hulk Hogan one and an Ultimate Warrior one. And man, those mugs were just awesome because I had these little superheroes on there. And at the time, and that's whenever I started watching wrestling. And then once I started watching, just the energy and the charisma that Hogan and Warrior and like Junkyard Dog, like he was one of my favorites. Just his charisma. Once that, I seen that, like it was pretty amazing, and like I was just stuck at that point, and then just started following it ever since.
It's so the stories are always so similar. It's just one sighting of it, and then that's it. Everything's just about this now. It happened to me too. I was a little bit later on in, I was about 12, 13 years old. Before that, it was all about basketball. That's all I cared about. Then it was wrestling. Forget about basketball. But yeah, that's really great to hear those kinds of stories. So I guess, growing up, eventually you meet two guys by the name of Matt and Jeff Hardy. Is this at this point, do you guys start doing a bit of backyard wrestling together before it becomes Omega? Is that how that came about?
Yeah, Matt and Jeff, like whenever I met them, it was right around the time that, like they had a train, and they were, they were obviously wrestling fans, and I was wrestling fans. So we become really good buddies, and we started, just hanging out a lot. And that was about the time that I guess that Matt had started converting like their trampoline into a wrestling ring. And we just started, like, I guess doing what we saw on TV and recording it. And, we had these characters, but at the time, like I was so much younger than everybody. Like, dude, I was so tiny. I didn't weigh but probably like 90 pounds, cause I was like 8, 9 years old at that point. Wow. And, yeah, so like we would just kind of mimic what we seen on TV and, record it. And, it started from there. It just evolved from there into, well, first we had NFWA, and then NFWA kind of rolled into Omega once we rebranded it. And, like, I guess we had an investor jump in named Thomas Simpson that really wanted to take a run with us and get the promotion up and going.
Yeah, now you mentioned that, the memories are flooding back, I think, from a Hardy's documentary from a few years back about how there was a trampoline and it was then converted into a ring. So yes, Omega, I mean, I have to say Omega is such a great name. Whoever came up with that, props to them. So, okay, these are like the nice humble beginnings. what are your fondest memories of this time period with Omega? You know, you guys have this thing that you've kind of created together, and times moving through the history of Omega. You know, to you, when you look back, just what's something that jumps out at you that's fond?
I think the special thing that we had with Omega is like, like we had so many styles of wrestling. And I think the only thing that I can compare it to that, for somebody that hasn't never seen the footage, from our Omega days is like, it wasn't a promotion, it was a culture. I think we had a culture there. We had some guys that everybody had their individual personalities, and and then once those personalities outside the ring went in the ring, like just obviously hyped up a lot. I just feel like we were able to create a culture, and like it was a real culture. Like it wasn't fake. It wasn't like we just drove in and we did these shows and then we left. It was like we rolled together, man. Like we were like not a gang but a gang, you know what I mean? Like we went everywhere together. Like we did shows together, we traveled hours and hours to do other shows together, and like we had our clique, man. And like our clique was strong, and we backed each other, and we like we just went out and we chased this thing together. And I think the only thing I feel like AEW is kind of doing that right now. Like I think that's why they're so successful, is because like they've not just created another pro wrestling company or a sports entertainment company. I feel like AEW, they've created a new culture in pro wrestling, and I think that's what it takes to really get fans' attention and get people to believe in the product. Is they want to be part of that culture, just not a company. So I think on a smaller scale, like obviously a lot smaller scale, Omega was a culture.
Absolutely. And yeah, I totally get what you mean with AEW. It's kind of like what they're doing feels like, oh, this is what we were kind of missing for quite some time. So I can see that happening right now before our eyes. Okay, another question I had for you was, we had a previous guest. I think it was Lodi, or it might have been Lenny Lane. It was either one of them, but they told me a story about you guys all were in a group together. You worked on a show. I think you were still like 16 years old at the time, and you stayed up all night and you needed to be dropped off to get to school, because if you missed another day of school, you were either going to get suspended or expelled or something like that. Can you enlighten me on that?
Yeah, actually, I remember that, man. Like, like that's what, like Lodi, like, man, Lodi, he's, wow, what a great guy. Like, I love Lodi. And me being so young at the time too, like, something I have to say is like, I didn't have a father figure at that point, because my dad, like, he was in a car accident. He was paraplegic and kind of just bedridden. He couldn't walk, talk, like he so I kind of lost my dad at an early age. And like the thing that is like, I feel like I was raised by pro wrestlers. And there's a lot of good to that and there's a lot of bad to that. But like, I had all these older guys that were just father figures to me, and they would do stuff like that, man. Like these and that, like I love these guys to death. And like, today, like, I'd do anything for them that I could possibly do. But, Lodi he was in a situation, man, where we were traveling, I believe it was Silva, North Carolina it was like 5 hours away from where I lived. And, we'd go do the show, a couple of times a month. And you realize like the show's running late. And, there's a couple of issues that, man, and it was just getting late. And I'd missed like 75 days of my high school already. And because I knew I was going to be a pro wrestler, I'm like, this is what I'm going to do. And my high school, they kind of backed me on it, because like I was already on TV and they would watch me on TV. So the principal was like, okay, well, but it got to the point where I was like at day 75 that I'd already missed. And they're like, look, dude, like this, we're not going to be able to, like, you might have to just quit school. I'm like, no, I don't. I want to make sure that I, at least graduate. Like I want a high school diploma. I just don't want to quit. And but that night, man, like Lodi's like, no, we're gonna get you back. We're gonna get you back. And like, dude, he drove all night. Like he's trying to get me to sleep. Like just trying to. And like we did, he drove me back so I could just roll right into school pretty much, like just, from being up all night, like just wrestling. But yeah, man, Lodi, he was one of the guys that would always step in, save the day. Like whenever, me being the younger kid, and like, they were all for it. Like, nah, you need your education too. So like, we got to make sure that we get you back. But yeah, Lodi, man, what a good guy. Like I love him to death, man. He'll always be family.
Oh, that's great, bro. Yeah, I thought I should bring that one up and give a shout out to Lodi. He's a tremendous human being. Okay, so when I think of the Omega Boys, I think of these names, and I'm going to kind of do like I guess, almost like a word association with you. But if you just have like a thought about each member of this group I'm going to bring up, please share your feelings. First of all, let's start with Jeff Hardy.
Jeff's my best friend. Like he's that guy that's been in my life as a friend forever. And like through both of our, like obviously it's no, I guess, secret that Jeff's had issues too, and like I've had issues, and like on both sides of that, like just support, we're just there for each other, man. Like outside of the business, outside of, like all the other stuff and the wrestling stuff, like he's the brother, he's my brother. And most people would think that didn't know that Matt and Jeff were brothers. Like they thought that me and Jeff were brothers because we were, like especially up until, like Jeff had his family, we were inseparable. Like we were always together, and like we had so many interests. And but yeah, man, he's my best friend. Like I'll do anything for him. I can.
Awesome, bro. And let's head over to his brother, Matt.
Yeah, Matt, he's I consider him family, man. Like he's, Matt, he's totally opposite of Jeff. Like if you see, and a lot of people always assume that like Matt and Shane, which they're more similar. Like me and Jeff, like we had more, I guess, stuff that was in common, and we were into the same things, whenever it comes to sports and motocross and, all kinds of crazy stuff. And then like, like Matt, like, he's a best friend of mine too. Like I love Matt to death, but we have a lot of different interests, I feel like. So that's why him and Shane connected more, as although that me and Jeff connected on. But yeah, Matt's definitely family.
Awesome, bro. And we'll get to Shane Helms next.
And Shane, man, Shane's my, like he's my my road dog. Me and Shane, we've traveled, just miles and miles together. I met Shane several years after I'd met, like obviously me and Matt and Jeff, like we grew up together. And then whenever we met Shane, like I'd heard of Shane because he was a cruiserweight on the cruiserweight in North Carolina. And, like he'll say the same, like we always, so like most, whenever we met, it was like, it wasn't a competition or nothing. It was just like, oh damn, this dude's cool, man. Like, we're cruiserweights. Like Shane's, he was a really good cruiserweight. And then from there, like, we got the journey into some pretty amazing things. And then we ended up in WCW together. And, music before that, Music City Wrestling. And, I think Shane, we've probably come close to death together more than anybody, whenever it comes to traveling together, between the car wrecks and the, like I tweeted something the other day, like we were in like this club shooting one time where Shane pulled up to this club. We were going to go to the club. And as soon as we pull up to the front door, like the place just explodes with people. And then like this dude comes out just trying to shoot at people. And like, I'm like, Shane, the dude's got a gun. Like, what are you doing? Back out. Let's go. And Shane's just kind of sitting there watching, and we ended up, leaving obviously. But like, yeah, we've had some really good times on the road together. So he's family, man.
That's some crazy stuff there, bro. The next name I wanted to bring up was Christian York.
Christian York, another guy like, I consider family. Met Christian, like obviously later than me and Matt and Shane, like we'd been doing stuff, but Christian, he just fit right in our crew. Just a funny guy, like, talented guy. And, whenever we were doing the Bad Street Boys thing and Music City Wrestling, I really got to know Christian at that point, just traveling with him, week in and week out, but super talented guy. And, like, I guess the whole Omega Cruise family, but he's another one that's just, I'd have to consider family.
Of course, bro, and I'm sure there's going to be more repeatings of compliments here for the one and only Joey Matthews.
Yeah, Joey Matthews, man, he's one of those guys that he was, we were really young hitting the scene in wrestling, and we both, I could say Joey would probably say too, pretty much being raised in professional wrestling by professional wrestlers. He's one of the guys that was with me from, like that standpoint of just being so young that I think everybody would help take care of us, like we've been in, situations to where, like people go, hey, you guys shouldn't be, here. And I remember, one situation, like obviously I don't want to include Joey in it, so I'm not going to tell the story, but I do remember a particular situation where, it wasn't a good scene, anybody our age to be in, and it could have went south, pretty fast. And our elders, they pretty much got us out of there and, got us away from, what was going on, just because and which was real cool. Cause man, to have, everybody just thinks that, pro wrestlers are savages and these outcasts, crazy people. Man, I wouldn't change it, man. The elders or, the guys that were older than us, man, they really would take care of me. And I know Joey was in that situation, but he's, Joey's my brother. I do for him I can.
Awesome, bro. Yeah, I just thought it was important to kind of run through your feelings on each member that I have mentioned just then. And if I ever have any of the other guys on the show, I will be doing the exact same with them.
Yeah, that's cool.
Okay, I wanted to get to a little bit of WCW, and because I from my research, very topical for this week as well, the one and only Chris Kanyon was, I guess, they given him some power to sign a bunch of cruiserweights in 1999. So how did it come about that Chris Kanyon, I guess, discovered you and Shane and got you guys into WCW?
Yeah, so me and Shane, we were doing the Bad Street Boys thing in Music City Wrestling. We'd been there on that, and it was at that point where we felt like, I felt like, I can only speak from the way I was feeling at the time. I don't want to speak for Shane, but at the time, I was feeling like I was ready for more. I wanted, I was ready for, the next journey for me in pro wrestling. And Matt and Jeff, they had, did extra work with Chris Kanyon whenever he would come up to WWE before he was in WCW. And, I was talking to Matt and I was like, hey man, who would be a good contact for me to contact somebody about going down to the power plant and doing stuff there? And man, Chris Kanyon's really cool, and he's down there, he's doing good down there, and he would be willing to talk to you, I'm sure. So I ended up reaching out to Chris Kanyon, and our first conversation didn't go well because it was pretty much, I was like, hey Chris, I'm Shannon, I'm a friend of Matt and Jeff's. They said that you'd probably be willing to talk to me. And he's like, hey dude, what's up? So he started talking. I was like, I'm interested in coming to the power plant. Are you familiar with my work? Can I send you a tape? And he's like, yes, send me, but I've seen you, I've seen your stuff already. Some of the stuff you're doing, Music City Wrestling. So he was familiar with me. And at that point, he, I guess what was it? Oh, he told me that the power plant was full. And he's like, the power plant's full and I'm not going to, I don't think that you'll be able to come down here right now. I was like, all right, well, just, keep me in mind, if anything pops up. Well, literally the next day, I get a phone call from Chris Kanyon. This is a timing thing. And he's super excited. He's like, bro, you're not going to, this is amazing. He's like, Eric Bischoff just gave me the power to hire 21 cruiserweights. And I guess, like Eric had this idea, I'm pretty sure, like from what I remember, and, like I've never got to talk to Eric, because it kind of fell apart, but about what the idea was, but I'm pretty sure it was something like Tough Enough versus, like a Tough Enough / Real World type show that they were going to do with these 21 cruiserweights. And Kanyon's like, dude, like, and you're the first one, like, hire you. And I was like, what? And like, I thought it was a rib. I thought he was joking, because I'm like, who just called somebody? You just told me, there's nothing for me. And then the next day you're calling me going like, okay, I'm going to hire you. Like, here's your deal, X amount of dollars, like, boom, contracts in the mail. Give me your address. And like, I got off the phone at that point and I was shocked. I was like, what just happened? Did I just get hired? Like, is that how this thing works? And like, it was legit, man. Like, he my was in the mail, and like, I got hired, like pretty much on the spot there. And like, they hadn't even seen me, wrestle live yet. And so later on, like, they call, or Kanyon calls me and he's like, hey bro, like, who would wrestle, if we bring you, to one of the shows, and we want to see you wrestle live now. And I'm like, damn, I've already signed my contract. Like, now you want to see me wrestle live? Okay, I better not screw this up. But immediately I was like, oh, Rey Mysterio, like, obviously, dude, like Billy Kidman. And he's like, no, Shannon, like, you have to not somebody that's on top of the card. Like, who else would you want to wrestle? He's like, could you bring, would you want to bring somebody? And like, obviously, like Shane Helms, like, we'd ripped it up, man. Like, we could kill it together. And we rolled down, and we did the match, and immediately, Shane, he's so good. Like, they wanted to sign him too. And Kanyon, was like, hey dude, like, here's your contract. So like, that's kind of, in a nutshell, just how it happened.
Oh, that's so cool, man. You got your boys, man, Jeff over in the WWF, and now you and Shane are in WCW. And funnily enough, Joey and Christian ended up going to ECW, which is funny. All at one time, you six were in the big leagues. So okay, that's a great story. Really, really love that. The fact that it ended up helping Shane get hired as well. When you first find out that 3 Count is going to be a unit, I'd like to know your first impressions of one Evan Courageous when you first met him.
Of Evan Courageous?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, Evan, man, he's another one. He's, now, like, I consider him, he's my brother, man. Like, we talk on a pretty much every other day basis still. But Evan was, like, he was awesome, man. Like, he was in WCW, and like, he was just doing his thing, just, trying to survive, at that point, like, just trying to, I guess, keep moving up on the card, keep getting better. And, Jimmy Hart approached him about the 3 Count idea, I think, before we got there. And like, Evan was open to doing it. And, like, me and Evan, we always got along really well. We had a lot of similarities, a lot of things in common. And, like, whenever we were on the road, man, like, we'd always go out, hang out together, and, just enjoy the towns and stuff that we were in. But yeah, Evan was awesome from day one, man. Like, he he showed me what he could show me in WCW, like, just to, cause I was young, man. I was like 18, maybe, just turning 19. Like, so like, I was this young kid in WCW, and, Evan was a little bit older than me. So like, he was one of the guys that just kind of, I guess, just showed me, what's up, man, like, how you survive on, in the big leagues, and what the big leagues are all about. And, just how, the politics can affect you and all that good stuff. So it was very insightful.
Oh, that's cool. So what did you think when you found out about this idea that Jimmy Hart had? I mean, I know you're a punk rocker, but this is a boy band thing. I'm not sure if Shane was a boy band kind of guy, but Evan looks like back then he looked like he may have really kind of liked that kind of thing. So, what were your thoughts on the idea?
Yeah. So when it first got pitched, like, in my head, like you said, man, like, I'm a punk rocker and a rock and roller. So like, the boy band thing, was kind of like, what? Like, I don't see myself as a boy band type thing. Cause even back then, like at 18, like I had this vision of what I wanted to look like and who I was. Like, I just wanted to be covered in tattoos and like, just, be this hard looking dude. And, but I was totally opposite. I was long blonde hair and, like hardly any tattoos. And it was just this young kid, like pretty boy. And, so the idea at first was like, but at the same time, like, I'm going, man, like I can I'll crush it. Whatever they give me, I'm gonna take it. We'll run with it and we'll make the best of it. Like, that's what we tried to do. And it actually, it turned into something pretty great. Like, I'd even go as far to say like 3 Count at one point was probably the biggest hills in the company because the people freaking hated us, to the point where they were throwing everything they could in the ring at us.
It's so true because if you were kind of into different kind of music or whatever, like wrestling, you probably wouldn't like boy bands. You'd be more into like rock music or something like that. So you probably want to see boy bands get beat up. So this is the perfect storm to be a heel. And it's at least in the year 2000 anyway.
Yeah. Well, you're coming out of the, coming out of the Attitude Era too. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, you're coming out of that, so it's like you have really cool hard characters like Steve Austin and the NWO and stuff. But then all of a sudden there's this little puny like boy band that's coming in, and it's like it was good. The timing was perfect for it.
Yeah, I certainly love the dynamic between you three across the ring from Brian Knobbs. I found that to be some great stuff. So January 4th, 2000, you debut in the ring, at least, on Thunder in Florence, South Carolina, defeating PG-13 and Chavo Guerrero. So that's just from my research, the first match that the group had. And this starts off this big run. As time's wearing on, obviously this is a great kind of gimmick because it's giving you purpose and it's keeping you on TV throughout this kind of, is almost a strange time period for WCW because Vince Russo had just gone home and Kevin Sullivan takes over the book. And then 3 months later, Vince Russo and Eric Bischoff are in charge again. So from your perspective, how did that kind of feel with the environment changing 3 different times in the space of 3.5 months?
Yeah. Well, I was so young into the big company at that point. Like I really didn't understand what was going on behind the scenes. Like, honestly, I was so focused on just going out there and busting my ass and just killing it. Because that's what I knew how to do. Like I wasn't entangled in any kind of politics or anything like that at that point. So I really, that stuff didn't affect me, man. Like stuff I couldn't control. Eric Bischoff, like he's the one who hired me, and man, Eric's always treated me great. Like I have nothing but respect for Eric. Like I think he's a brilliant man whenever it comes to sports entertainment or pro wrestling. And outside of that, man, like he's just a very knowledgeable person. Like, if you sit down and have a conversation with him, you're like, man, this dude's smart. And like at the time, like I was being taken care of. So like all this other stuff that was happening, like, it really didn't affect me. And I wasn't intertwined with it. So I really, like I can't even speak about it because like I wasn't part of it. Because to me, like I come into that, I signed at WCW when this stuff was going on. So it was just kind of normal to me, like, you'd hear rumblings about stuff going to happen, but, until it happened, like just out, they were coming to us going, look, the Hardys, they're having a ladder match, with the Dudley, Edge and Christian. It's like, we need to compete with that. Like, what can you guys do to compete with that? It's like, okay, like, wow, you're not putting the pressure on us at all. But we had, like we've had some really good ladder matches that, are right up there or even better than some of the ladder matches that WWE was producing at the time. We did some really good creative stuff to separate ourselves from the ladder matches that WWE was having at the time. So I think they had faith that we could go out there and get the job done. And, like they took care of us the best that they could at that point where the company was at.
Cool, bro. Tank Abbott, this is an interesting addition to the squad. How did you find working with him I kind of find it cool that he doesn't take himself so seriously that he would say no to doing something like this, becoming 3 Counts #1 fan. What did you think of this angle?
Yeah, I thought it was great. Like Tank's a legit, badass. And whenever they put him in a group, like sometimes I just wondered if like he thought the gig was completely real, because like he was our security. Like there was times where he would want to fight people that mess with us, like outside of the locker room, and like would be at a restaurant or somewhere, and like if you didn't mess with 3 Count because Tank Abbott would kill you. But yeah, Tank was awesome. He was super cool to work with. You talk about a guy that, whenever you talk about people that don't want to do certain gimmicks, or, and you get people to go, oh, that's not my character, I wouldn't do that. It just speaks highly of Tank's character for him to, for them to go like, hey, we're thinking about putting you with this boy band. And he was, like most people would have bitched and moaned, like, no, my character, like I'm a legit tough guy. Like you wouldn't put me with a boy band. Like, but Tank was like, he owned it, man. Like he took it, he owned it. And like, then sometimes it was like, all right, Tank, like, this ain't real. Like you don't have to beat people up for us. Like, but he did, man. Like he was pretty awesome. I love Tank, man.
Oh, that's cool, bro. Yeah, no, he sold it really well. It looked like he really did enjoy everything that was going on. Yeah. Time wears on with WCW. I hate to skim through WCW because this is an important part of your career. But I wanted to ask a little bit about when you first hear, rumblings that WCW might be getting bought by the WWF, and how excited or concerned were you by this news?
Yeah, well, I didn't know, like I said, like I wasn't, like I wasn't, I guess, in on all the gossip and stuff that was going on. So like I had no clue what was going on as far as WWE and WCW working some kind of deal for WCW to be bought. All I remember is walking in, that day, and there being signs on the wall that said WWE this way and WCW this way. And at that point, like, even then I thought like, okay, who's playing some kind of prank, or, who's trying to rib everybody. And then, now we had a meeting that day, and, there they are, man. The WWE crew walks out, and it's real. Don't get no real.
Yeah, bro, that's that's intense, but and it's the final Nitro, right? So I mean, this is what a whirlwind of a day to rock up expecting just the regular day at the office, and the next thing you know, it's going to be the final edition of Monday Nitro. Take me through the day, I guess. This is an overwhelming day for a lot of people backstage, a lot of sad people, obviously, as well. What did you do during the show? After the show, did you go out and celebrate solemnly with some of the guys and kind of gossip about what might be coming next?
Yeah, I mean, like we went out there. I was on the last show. I think I was in a tag match, I believe. And I think I actually wrestled Mysterio. He was part of that match, if I recall right. I don't know. Like, and I've had so many matches since then, but I believe that was the match. I just remember that night going out. There was a little sadness there, but like I just felt like, and Dad told us like, if you're a hard worker, like obviously we're gonna pick your contracts up. So I was a little nervous. I was scared because I guess the thing that was the worst was just being a little sad, not knowing if some of the guys that I got close to, like if their contract would roll over or not, or if I wouldn't see them anymore, because we become, you become tight, man, like your brothers. And, that was sad, but, I went out that night, we enjoyed it. I just remember being on the plane the next day, like that was whenever it really hit me, like, the land of the unknown, like what happens from here. And then, from there, I just got home, and it was just kind of waiting to hear the next word.
Right. Yeah. No, intense stuff. And just for everyone out there, I should have written it down my notes. It was Ray Jr. and Billy Kidman defeating Evan and Shannon and the Young
Yeah.
Dragons in a three-way for the Cruiserweight Tag Team Championship, which unfortunately didn't get to be around too long because of all of this stuff taking place.
Yeah.
So how did you first find out that your contract was going to get picked up?
I got the phone call from Johnny Ace. He let me know. He's like, hey, we're going to roll your contract over. You're going to have a meeting with JR and you'll be flying. I think it was Atlanta where I was going to fly down from North Carolina and meet with JR. And then, they booked that meeting and I actually missed my flight for my first meeting with JR, and which is probably not a good look. Like I remember going, oh fuck, I'm fine. There's no way they're gonna pick me up now because like something happened. I don't know. I was running late or something, and ended up missing my flight, and then I had to, I guess, reschedule a flight, and I got there late, 4 hours late, and then I had to go in and meet with good old JR.
Right, that's cool. Okay, so the Heartland wrestling experience, HWA, you spent some time there. I know Evan is also there. Shane gets to go up onto TV because he was the Cruiserweight champion. So lucky for some. I know when we had Alan Funk on the show, he talked about how, geez, he was just starting to get on WCW pay-per-views. And now after all that time being in Developmental in WCW, he's finally there, and then he's back in Developmental at the WWE. How did you feel about your time there? And there was a time obviously where a lot of WCW talent got released, which we'll get to. But how did you feel about all this?
Yeah, it was, I was fortunate, man. I sit at home for, a couple of months actually. And how I ended up in HWA was, I actually, I'll never forget, I think it was going to be a tour in Europe that was going to be a few weeks long. And they had, I guess, Jasmine St. Clair and Blue Meanie was on it. And somebody contacted me about doing that tour with them. And I forget who the promoter was that was doing it, but it was an overseas tour. So I called JR. I'm like, hey, I haven't been in the ring in a couple of months. Like, would you mind if I go on tour, for a few weeks in the UK, just so I can, just stay active in the ring and just be ready for whatever it is that you guys are gonna, do with me. And he's like, yeah, let me check on it. So then JR called me back and he's like, well, actually, we don't want you to go on that tour because HWA is going on in Cincinnati. And some of the guys from Memphis, and I guess they closed Memphis down around that time. And those guys ended up in HWA, and they're like, we'd rather for you go there and work with these guys, for a few weeks. And I'm like, all right, that's cool, which was exciting. So I packed up my car and I was like, okay. And at the time, like I was engaged, and I owned a home in North Carolina and everything. I told my fiance, I'm like, all right, I'm heading to, Cincinnati. I'll be gone a few weeks. And I was there for that happened before they ended up, I guess, putting me on TV, which was cool. It was one of the greatest years of my life. And it's probably the biggest year of my wrestling career as far as learning. I learned so much there. Like, Les Thatcher was there, but we wrestled so much. Like, we had training every day, for 4 hours, and then, probably 4 or 5 shows a week. So like we were just still crushing it, man, like just show after show after show. And I feel like, that tape library that, I don't know if Les Thatcher has it or who has the HWA tape library, but I hope one day maybe WWE will acquire that and use that for the network, or somebody will acquire it and use it for the network. Cause like, man, the cruiserweight division in HWA, like, me, Jamie Noble, BJ Whitmer was part of it. Chad Collier. I don't know if you've ever heard of Chad, but like there was a lot of really good cruiserweights there, man, and like we were ripping it up. Like we had so many good like cruiserweight feuds over that year that were just ongoing, and it kept us all intertwined. Like me and Jamie probably had some of the best matches we've ever had there that probably will never get seen on TV. And same with Chad and BJ Whitmer. Like we just, it was such a killer crew that we had there. Amaga was there. Charlie Haas was there. There's just a lot of people there that were very talented, and like that footage is priceless. And just hopefully one day somebody will be able to shed light on that.
Yeah, no, that would be cool, bro. I know that it was quite a stacked roster at the time there. So moving forward to July 2002, this is pretty obviously special. Becoming a Mattitude follower, brought up to TV to side with Matt Hardy version 1. This is just incredible because it also leads to you being able to be out there at WrestleMania. Which who would have thought, you and Matt and Jeff a little, teenagers, or you were still a kid when you met and started doing all that, and now you're at WrestleMania all these years later. So please just tell me about being brought up to TV and just the run that you got to have with Matt.
Yeah, so when I first got to TV, well, I went on house show loops first, and like just something that I bring up a lot. Like me and Jamie, like we were, our style together whenever we would wrestle, especially in HWA, is very, like I'm not going to compare myself to Benoit or Guerrero because like those guys are just simply untouchable whenever it comes to their work. But like our style whenever we wrestled, like there was very similarities to the style of matches that Eddie and Chris would have. So whenever we first hit the road, like Benoit, like he was our biggest cheerleader. Like he had his head through the curtain in every match, like telling us, like tightening our stuff up, and like, and it got to the point though where, Benoit was so intense, man. Like me and Jamie, after about, working on several loops together, we come to the back and I'm like, dude, like we're killing each other at the, my teeth were all loose. Like I had a broke nose, like Jamie's nose was broke. Like we were so beat up because, like Chris is like, come on, you got to lay it in. We want, like it's a fight. Like you have to fight. And, like he kept pushing us, and it's like, man, this has been wild. Like we got to impress Benoit. And, like we eventually was like, man, like we can kill each other. We got a long road ahead of us. Like we can't do this every night. But yeah, man, from there, like ending up with Matt as his Mattitude follower, like it was it was just a little silliness and some fun TV that people really they attached to, and they enjoyed watching it. People still like, if they haven't never seen the Mattitude follower stuff, the little silly pranks that we would do, the Hornswoggle, or just some of the stuff that we would do throughout that little era of being the Mattitude follower. And then whenever Crash come aboard, like he was my MF'er. Or not my MF'er, he was my moron. And it was, I was the Attitude follower and he was the moron. He was my follower. So it was just a funny little kind of Tom and Jerry type cartoony, deal that we were doing. And like, we had fun with it, man. And just being part of WrestleMania with Matt, like that was special. We got to go out and, biggest show, one of the biggest shows on the planet, man. Like there we are, like you said, two small town that were best friends, and you look around and it's like, man, I think we did pretty good for ourselves. We made it, so that was, it's a very special moment.
Absolutely, it really is. I needed to bring that up because who would have thought that would happen. So again, don't want to skim too much, but I don't want to take up too much of your time. But I felt that this was important to bring up. After you leave WWE the first time, you go to TNA, December 2005, as the Prince of Punk, feuding with AJ Styles kind of out of the gate, which is, he'd been kind of like built up as, their guy almost, working with him at that time. Please tell me how you felt being in TNA at this point in time.
Yeah, it was great. Like I've been talking to Jarrett, Jeff Jarrett, like he was a mentor of mine, and he, in WCW, he is one of the guys that took me under his wing, kind of showed me the ropes of how WCW works. I traveled a lot with Jeff and hung out with Jeff a lot. And, like he was in TNA, obviously it was his company. And, him being a good friend of mine, like, whenever I went there, I changed my character, and I was like, hey man, I got this idea for a character that I really feel like is me. Because at WWE, like I really didn't get to venture into the character like full fledged. It was just kind of half-assed. And then whenever I got to TNA that first time, like I really got to fine tune it and grow my hair out the way I wanted it, have the mohawk that I wanted, have the gear that I wanted. And I was really feeling the character. And whenever I showed Jeff kind of what the character was, like he liked it. Dutch Mantel, he was on there. Dutch liked it. And like at the time, like Dutch was like, we need to shoot some vignettes. We did some pretty cool vignettes with it. And then from there, like ending up, I guess wrestling against AJ. Like you said, AJ was a golden boy at that point, and to be able to be put in the mix right there with AJ, like it was big. And like I ended up leaving TNA shortly after.
Yeah,
it didn't last. Yeah, and like I think that was probably the biggest mistake I've probably made in my career. And I was going through a divorce at the time, and I had to look more from a business standpoint of where financially I was going to be for the next couple of years, because I was going to have to come out of pocket a ton of money, I felt like. And in order for me to financially get through this divorce, like I needed, I needed to know what my funds were going to look like, and at the time, like there was no, like, this was out of something that I didn't handle with Jarrett just because we were friends. Like, this is, talking to Dixie Carter and everybody else that handled that matter, Terry Taylor, at the point, like I had to make the decision, whether to go to WWE or TNA, because WWE seen what I was doing on TV, and they were like, "Yeah, we want to bring you back." And like unfortunately, like they offered me some decent money to come back, and at that point, like I had to make a decision once Vince is like, "Hey, okay, we'll bring you back." You can't really tell Vince yeah and then turn around and tell him no, and then want to do good business later. So I just kind of got caught in like like a little financial situation there to where I had to make a decision quick. And I went back to WWE, which financially was the right decision probably, but from a career standpoint, it probably wasn't the best decision, because I feel like I would have got a chance to work with AJ and probably do some really good stuff at that point. Like whenever it comes to the creative side of things in TNA, like it would have been way better for me to stay.
yeah, no, that's kind of why I wanted to bring that up, because, and you've answered it for me now, because I felt like I was watching both products at the time, and I was really into what was going on with you in TNA, and they kind of got you with AJ, and you'd even gone over in some of the matches with him, and it felt like that they were really going to give you something, and then all of a sudden it was like 4 months later, similar kind of character in the WWECW, but they didn't do a whole lot with it after the Punk thing that happened on Sci-Fi. So yeah, well, now you've answered it for me, and it makes sense. So you kind of alluded to it before, but were you disappointed with how this went when you came back and you were known as the Reject?
Yeah, it was because whenever I was presented with like, hey, we'll bring you back, we'll let you do the character here, I was a little disappointed. Like I didn't know who CM Punk was really. I'd heard of him, but I didn't really follow Punk at that point, like through Punk's indie career. And like they were bringing me back basically to have Punk just pretty much kill me off, that character, because I was I was doing the Prince of Punk thing in TNA, and I'm pretty sure, like, I kind of know how Paul Heyman thinks too. Like, for them to build Punk at that point and get Punk going, like there only needed to be one Punk on TV. So like, why not bring back me, who was doing the Punk thing in TNA, and just start that off with me and just completely kill it. So yeah, I was really disappointed in like how that got handled. Obviously he made the right decision on who to run with the Punk character, because CM Punk's like the biggest star on the planet right now, and like at the time, like he just had a connection to the people that obviously I just didn't have at that point. So like I'm not saying they made the wrong decision by like want me to kill that character there, but like I got to have some really good matches with Punk on ECW, and like I really enjoy working with Punk. I think like they definitely made the right decision on who was going to be financially better to run with, because he ended up being what he was in WWE, and this obviously we see where he's at now. So I can't say that they made they made a bad decision or a wrong decision. It's just not the the decision for my character. Like I feel like I probably should have stayed at TNA at that time, instead of going back. But like I said, man, like unfortunately, like finances play a part in careers too, and I had to do what was best. And my career at that point, like for that character, just kind of got sacrificed a little bit over finances.
Yeah, and fair enough, man. Like, honestly, just from the way that you're describing it, there's literally like nothing you can do about it when you're going through all those different things at that time. So I hope you don't look back too upset about the whole thing. These things happen. I'm
not. That's one thing. Like like I feel like guys don't understand. There's a business side of this thing too, and we agree to do things. When we sign contracts, or when we leave companies, or when we say yes to things, like we're agreeing to do things. So it's like when you sign a contract for one of these companies and then they do something with your character that you don't like, it's easy. You can quit. You can walk away. You can say, no, I'm not doing it. I would rather just walk away right now. But like I said, man, like for me, like finances, like I've always treated this like a business. And I had to make a business decision over a character decision at that point,
Yeah, absolutely. And the next thing I wanted to bring up is, again, we're going back to TNA here, because you're the first person I've had the chance to ask about this. It was the first live TNA Monday Night Impact. You return with Jeff on that evening, and it begins kind of one of your fruitful runs that you've had in wrestling, forming your team with Jesse Neal in Ink Inc. And I feel like you guys put in some real hard yards in this team. And unfortunately, you never actually end up becoming tag team champions. But like, again, a lot of hard yards put in. You guys really worked well together. First of all, tell me about that first night back, and what the vibe in the locker room was like on the first head-to-head Monday night with Impact, and tell me about how you felt about teaming with Jesse.
Yeah, that was cool. How that was, like, I'd left WWE and I went on the Hulkamania Tour. Hogan and Bischoff, like, they ran this big Hulkamania Tour in Australia. And I think Rikishi, he had, something to do with the promotional part of it. And Umaga was on it. Umaga was one of my best friends. And, Umaga hit me up and he's like, hey, dude, like, let's do this tour together. It's a couple of weeks. We'll do the Hulkamania Tour. And we were in Australia, man. And just, like Hogan, like, there was a lot of downtime. So, I think the first conversation, I was in the gym. Hogan was in the gym. We were working out. And, he was talking about coming back, and he was going to, do some big stuff with TNA at the time. And, he asked me then, he's like, are you, do you want to come? Do you want to be part of it? And he's like, do you think that Jeff is going to be part of it? And I was like, I'll talk to Jeff. I'll see what's up. Just because Jeff was going through some personal issues at the time, and he didn't really want to be involved in no kind of wrestling at the moment. But, I went back, and me and Jeff, we had some conversations about it. And I ended up hitting, Jeff Jarrett and Hogan up about, like Jeff being interested, if it's the right, schedule and the right thing. And that's just kind of how it all played out. And then from that point, like, Jeff agreed to come back, and, we ended up showing back up that night. And then when I came back, like, I knew I was coming back in the same character, and I just, they wasn't really doing much with him. And at that point, like, he had a mohawk. And I just remember, I think Vince Russo come up to me and like was having conversations on whether Jesse should cut his mohawk off or not. Right. And I was like, well, why cut it off? Let me do something with him. Like I can't remember if it was Russo or not, but somebody was having that conversation with me on like if Jesse should change his look or not since I was back. And it just kind of come from there. And I'm like, dude, like put us together. Like, let's do a tag team thing. Like, let's see how it works. Then, like, the name Ink Inc, like we just kind of all brainstormed, and that come into effect. And then, I feel like it was one of them tag teams, like the people really connected with, man. Like we, it really took off. Like our merchandise, like on house shows and stuff, was selling pretty good. Beer money was there. Like we had some really good teams to work with. And the tag team division was pretty hot at that moment. So like we were killing it, man. Like we're doing house shows, like TNA was really rolling at that point. And then later what happened, like I said, I don't want to speak on Jesse's personal business or anything like that, but I think there was something from a contract standpoint that didn't sit well with Jesse. And that's whenever Jesse, he decided to leave.
Right. Well, that's cool. But yeah, I thought it was a great team, and Ink Inc was such a great name to come up with for it as well. But
yeah, I think like, man, Ink Inc could have been huge. I think that could have been a really big thing. I just feel like at that point with TNA too, like you had some power struggles, and then there were certain people in creative control that were trying for this and that, and it's just like they wasn't really doing nothing for us whenever it comes from a creative standpoint on how to invest in us as a team. So they kind of dropped the ball with that, I feel like.
Yeah, no, I get you. That I kind of felt like that too. I felt like that it really could have you guys could have been together even longer, and could have been up there, getting some title reigns and things of that nature.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask about this because I'm not sure if you actually, I don't think you actually did perform on any of these shows, but I might be wrong. Sometimes the internet can lie. But in 2013, Matt and Jeff bring back Omega. Did you get to be a part of any of those shows? And if you saw any of it, what did you think after all these years to see that company back?
Yeah, no, it wasn't Matt and Jeff that brought the shows back. So yeah, so Omega at that point, Shane Helms, he ran like, I don't know, a couple of Omega shows. I don't know exactly how many. It's like 2 or 3 or something. Okay. I guess I think he did some benefit stuff for his like high school or his old school that he wrestled for, like the day. Like I said, I don't know much about it, but it wasn't, it was Omega, but it was, like a lot of other people that wasn't in the original Omega.
Okay.
I know Matt, he was there, and I think he wrestled on it, or he come in and he was part of it from a show standpoint. But it was, there were really good shows. Like Shane did a great job, promoting it, and they did well. But like I feel like it's just my opinion. Like I was hoping one day Omega would come back with all the originals at some point, especially now where in their careers. Like hopefully one day, Omega will come back and we can run, like a series of shows just and have a lot of our originals on it, as well as like some new talent that's out there now.
Yeah, that would be cool. That was something else I was going to ask. That'll be a really cool, story coming full circle type thing, to get this stage of everyone's career. I know Matt's talked about how, he's probably not got much time left in the business and really wants to do some good stuff. So I'm really proud of him right now because, he's in AEW right now and he's doing good stuff. And I'm just hopeful, it'd be really cool if you could all kind of reconvene at one stage there to kind of, put a bow on Omega before it's all said and done. At this stage, Shannon, I want you to let everyone know what's going on in your wrestling career right now and, where they can find you in social media and all that.
Yeah. So social media, from a social media standpoint, like you can find me on Twitter, Shannon Brand. Like I'm on at the Shannon Brand. If you go to Instagram, all my links everything's linked together. So if you go on Twitter at the Shannon Brand and on Facebook, Shannon Moore, you'll find me. But as far as my wrestling career, man, like, dude, I'm in the best shape of my life right now. I'm like, from a gym standpoint, I'm getting ready to crank up shows. Like this summer, I took off like 3 months over the summer. I wanted to enjoy my summer. Had some things that I wanted to do just from a vacation standpoint and just didn't want to be too busy. But yeah, man, like I cranked back up starting next weekend, the 2nd, and like between now and February, March, like I'm booked up pretty good. Like I got to make it back to Australia though. That's where I want to go. I want to go back to Australia. Haven't been in a while. So, like I love COVID. COVID's put a lot of restrictions on stuff right now. And it sucks because like, a lot of my international stuff, like, can't happen right now because of the whole COVID thing. But hopefully going forward, like, Japan we'll be able to open back up and go to Japan and Australia or, wherever it is we want to go. But yeah, man, I'm booked up, now, like I'm going to be booked up all winter and spring. If I'll take off a couple of months through the summer next year or not. But man, life's good, man. Like I can't complain. I'm healthy. Like I get to do what I love. And then, whenever I can, like, I'm also working with people from an addiction standpoint too. So that's something I want to touch on too, man. Like, if there's anybody that listens to this that's struggling or knows somebody struggling with addiction, like find me on social media, reach out to me. Let's help try to save somebody's life. Like I said, like I've had my issues with it. It's a real thing. Addiction's such a real thing, and it's definitely a pandemic that's just as real as anything else. And people are dying every day from it. So if you or somebody that's struggling, like reach out to me, man. Let's try to get them some help and try to get them on the other side of that thing.
Awesome, bro. Thanks for saying that. Yeah, we'll ensure that all the links to get in touch with Shannon are there on YouTube, down below when this goes up in a few weeks' time. But really awesome to hear all that too, bro, that you're getting back out there. And, if you come to Australia, you're welcome to come hang out with me if you like. So I'll cook up a nice Aussie feast for you.
Let's do it.
So Shannon, this brings us very close to the end of the interview, but we've got one final segment. It's called 5-Second Frenzy. 5 seconds to answer each question. Even if you break the 5-second rule, it's okay. You won't get in any trouble. But quick fire questions, quick fire answers. The first one, Shannon Moore, who is your favorite wrestler?
Shawn Michaels.
Fantastic choice. I'm not sure if Shane will like that answer, but favorite opponent?
Rey Mysterio.
Excellent. Favorite match you've ever had?
Favorite, man, that's a hard one.
Sorry.
All right, the Cruiserweight Open at WrestleMania at Madison Square Garden,
Oh, of
because it
course.
was, yeah, in Madison Square Garden, and it's WrestleMania, so it don't get no better than
Yeah, and I think he got eliminated by the Ultimo Dragon as well. So that's
Yeah.
that's an honor
Yeah.
right there. Getting away from wrestling now, Shannon. What's your favorite book?
My favorite book, The Secret.
Excellent. We've had that a few times on the show. Favorite TV show?
Dexter.
Nice. Favorite film?
Pulp Fiction.
Oh, bro, I'm digging your taste here, and I'm looking forward to this answer right here. Favorite musical artist?
Pearl Jam.
Oh, dude, don't get me started. Do not get me started on Pearl Jam. I was in the fan club. I know every lyric on 10 and verses. Don't get me started. Okay, moving away from that. Favorite food?
Sushi.
Nice. Favorite place to eat on the road?
Sushi. That's any
Excellent.
sushi restaurant. Yeah.
Any sushi place. Excellent. What Shannon Moore's thirsty. What's a beverage? What's your favorite beverage to drink?
Dude, honestly, this is so boring, but my favorite beverage is water.
It's a great answer.
Gets no more boring than that, right? But there's just something about water that I just love. Yeah.
It's underrated. It is underrated.
Yeah.
I've realized when I was a kid, I was like, oh, water's boring. I want cordial. No. Now at this age, I'm like, oh my God, I need some water.
Yeah.
The second last one of 5 Second Frenzy. Shannon Moore, you see a good looking female. You know, what is your favorite female body part? What is something that attracts you to a woman first?
Probably her booty.
Excellent. Yep. I feel you there, bro. I feel you there.
Yeah.
And the last one here on 5 Second Frenzy. I don't know if you've sworn once on this show, but the last one is always, what is your favorite curse word?
Probably fuck. Yeah, I say it a lot. Way too much. It's just easy. You can fill in any sentence with it. Like, it just doesn't matter. It fits anywhere.
Yeah, any situation. You kick your toe on the leg of a table, you go fuck.
Like,
you see a nice booty, you go fuck.
Yeah, fuck. Yeah. So it's all in the presentation, right?
That's it, bro. Well, Shannon Moore, bro, this was so fun to talk to you and ask you about some of these great moments that you've had in your life. And you were so open and honest about things, and that's what means a lot to me on the show is to hear these things and you not care and just be like, this is it. This is what I've been through, and hopefully through that helps other people. So I just want you to know that I live in the most isolated city in the world, Perth, Western Australia. I have seen you perform in this city before, so it's a long way away. But even without you performing here in Perth, you have a fan in me. You have a fan and a whole bunch of my friends that looked up to you and your boys from Omega over the years. And I just hope that you're so proud of everything you accomplished with your friends. And I just hope you realize that for you to reach all the way to this most isolated city in the world really means something. You've accomplished something, my friend.
That's cool, man. I appreciate it. It's talking about like our bringing up struggles and like hard times in our life and stuff. Like, I think that's one thing that I really enjoy about, like, I don't even like to call people who have followed me fans. Like, I just feel like that's just it's like a cuss word to me that just doesn't express like how much I appreciate people that supported my career over the years, because I have so much respect for these people, because I've been through things, and like other wrestlers or artists, like, they go through things as well. And I feel like I've always been really real with my people that have supported me. And I think, like, through thick and thin, man, like, all my struggles, in life, personal, not personal, professionally, it's like, man, they're always there. So it means the world to me, like, to be able to be on your show And if that reaches somebody that, you know, has supported me over the years, like, and it makes me happy. Like you said, if you're tucked away over there and like they don't get to see me much or see much material of me, like, man, just to be able to reach the people that supported me, like, it means so much to me. So I'm glad you had me on the show.
Well, thank you, bro. I'm glad that I had you on the show. So again, appreciate it so much, bro.
All right. Have a good day.
You too. And thank you everyone out there for watching the Insider's Edge podcast here on the WCWA network. I'm Karlifornia alongside my good friend here, Shannon Moore, and we will see you next time. Thank you.